I'm not ready.
All right, well, we're live now, so too bad. Hi, hello, and welcome to this playtest of Girl by Moonlight, a game that I made, or am making. It's not done yet. Uh, with me, or well, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Andrew. My pronouns are they, them. Uh, I'm writing this game. I do a bunch of like Twitch RPG stuff. You probably already know who I am if you're here. Um, Luke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. I am Luke. I use they, them pronouns. I am a professional GM for children, a game designer, a cast member on Twitch shows, and the host of a role playing game actual play podcast. You can find us on Twitter at feelingsfirst_. We're going to drop our first episode like at the end of the week. Andrew's on it. We play Monster Hearts. It's very exciting.
Cool. Kira.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Kira. I'm a queer cyborg game designer living in Columbus, Ohio. And the two things I want to say real quick that I'm working on, I have a hashtag right now called April TTRPG Maker. If you are a role-playing game maker, designer, creator, please join in. It's a month-long thing. And what's the other thing? Oh, next week, I'm going to be on Actual Play on Twitch streaming my game that I'm designing, which is a cyberpunk feels game called Sync, S-Y-N-C. So you can follow my Twitter to figure that out. I don't know if you have my, it's at Kieran on Z. Sorry, mine is long. Hi.
Daniel.
I'm Daniel. I use he, him pronouns. I don't have anything to plug. I'm a friend of Andrew's. I do design games. None of them are published. I do have a Twitter handle, but it's really weird. So
It's
maybe I'll change
under
my mind promoting things later on, but for now I'm just a player here.
it's under his name. Everyone's Twitter is under their name. Don't mean to
Oh, cool.
Never mind.
Ash.
Hi, I'm Ash. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a game designer and I stream GMing a bunch of stuff on my own channel. You can find me at ACGIAK, ACGIAK on pretty much all of the socials. And my magical girl superpower is falling in love with people.
Well, great. So real quick, we're going to talk about the safety tools that we will be using to ensure that we, as a group of responsible and, generally upstanding adults who give a shit about each other, we're going to be using these to make sure that we don't do anything bad during the course of play. And so the tools that I would like to be using are this idea of pause, rewind, fast forward, rewrite, etc. So basically, if we bump into any problematic content and someone feels the need to, we're going to pause the game. We're going to talk about what stuff is creating some discomfort or whatever. We're going to figure out what, if any, adjustments we need to make. If that means we need to rewind and replay something and take it in a different direction, we're going to do that. If it means that we just need to skip ahead and kind of elide the problematic stuff, we'll do that. And there's room to, change the narrative to make sure that everyone feels honored and safe and comfortable, because that's the first and foremost priority. And Luke, you had some stuff to add as
Yeah, and like on the note of honored, and because we're playing a game that like explicitly is about queer people, and I just want to talk about this because it's a good thing. In Monster Hearts 2, Avery has a great bit where she talks about the idea of circles of responsibility when we play. And the first innermost circle is our responsibility to ourselves. And so like when it comes to self-care, like right, that is the first circle. Take care of yourself first. Put on your own air mask before helping children and strangers near you, whatever it is they say on planes. The second circle of responsibility is to your fellow players. Once you have taken care of yourself, if you have space, if you have time, if you have energy, take care of them. And then the third circle is both to the characters we're playing and to like the real people who they are inspired by. So like this is a game about queer people. Like it is our responsibility to kind of like do right by them in terms of representation as much as we can. And then also because this is Twitch, we have this weird fourth circle of responsibility, which is y'all in chat. And it's unclear based on Avery's schema whether y'all are the third circle or the fourth circle, but we'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about something that you're not super comfortable with or excited about, I encourage you to mute or go watch something else or whatever is going to make you safe. You don't need to stick around and suffer through it if it's getting weird. All that said, we say all this, we do a lot of hedging. We're probably not going to run into lots of problems, I expect, but it's good to have these tools in case we need them. Certainly, we're not going to be aiming towards creating problems.
Yeah. Andrew, can I just, do we have a visual signal for, for non-verbal?
If you need to, stop the game, just put your hand over your camera or in front of your face, open palm, and we'll know what that means, and we'll keep an eye out for it.
Cool.
And then, Daniel, did you have something to add as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, for me, it's not just about avoiding problems, but it's also so that we feel comfortable going to places that could be difficult and trusting that our fellow players will stop us if we've gone somewhere that's too difficult, because I know some of you, but most of you I don't know very well. So, and some of you don't know me. So I would say it's a tool both for safe play, but also for allow us to play more dramatically or take more risks.
Yeah, like a net under a trapeze.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, this game, Girl by Moonlight, it's a hack of Blades in the Dark for doing tragic magical girl stuff. Some notable points of media reference for everyone would be certainly foremost Puella Magica Madoka, which is a really dark revisionist magical girl thing. It's real good, but also there's room for Steven Universe or even some weird outside stuff like Serial Experiments Lane or Persona or Die Buster even. We're going to be focused on... I've only got 2 series playbooks available for this playtest because there's stuff I need to focus on. So specifically, that's going to be In Darkest Night, which is the dark, edgy, ultra tragic,
the bad one.
Well, yeah, the bad one, and one that's called In a Maze of Dreams, which is about mass culture and how that intersects with oppression and ideas kind of getting a life of their own and taking over and kind of influencing people's in this case literally their dreams, but that is a metaphor for their their ability to conceive of the world. So those are the 2 that I will submit to y'all, and I'm just going to read the pitch text for both. We're going to start by picking a series playbook, which is a shared playbook, kind of analogous to the crew playbook in Blades, for those of you who are familiar with that. But in this case, it also includes setting, antagonism, and some stuff about the protagonists. We're going to be choosing from a bunch of lists once we get to that stage. So, I'll start with In Darkest Night. So In Darkest Night is about tragedy and betrayal. Most, if not all, of the characters will be complicit in the world's oppression, with little hope for redemption. The protagonist's own power plays a role in their undoing, and we play towards an almost inevitable tragic fate. This playbook demands that we play with a sense of dramatic irony. Despite knowing that our characters are doomed, we take an interest in seeing how that doom plays out. We want to see how and when they fall, or if they rise to meet their fate. So there's that one. Or there is In a Maze of Dreams, which is about desire, mass culture, and ideas developing a life of their own. The protagonists are tangled up in a conspiracy, a multifarious, sinister plot, a virus of human thoughts. The answers they need can be found in the dreams of suspects whom they pursue, and we play to find out what the answers are. So there's no grand, I don't have an answer to what the conspiracy is or what it's going to be about. We kind of chase that around the narrative
because
and figure it out.
I haven't seen anything that does mystery well where there's a preset answer to the mystery. I don't think that's the thing that can happen.
That's
in
not how, yeah.
In RPGs, it's not achievable.
So those are the 2 series playbooks that I would like to play. If someone's a super hard no on both, we can open it up to the other ones, but in terms of the stuff that I need to playtest, these are 2 that I haven't run yet. And I'm most excited to make those happen.
I'm so hyped for Maze of Dreams. I really, I'm so. That's the one I'm most excited about.
Andrew, I really want to just play whatever Inner Starlit Kingdom is now called and be fantastical. But that said, I am always down to be sad and or mysterious. So like, sign me, like I'm down for either. Sign me the fuck up.
Yeah, Kira, do you have any preferences?
I'm fine with either one too. Well, my preference is probably to tragedy, but I would play either one.
Okay.
The mystery one reminds me kind of the Persona 5 game.
Yes, yeah, it's very much inspired by that and anime like Serial Experiments Lane. It's kind of got like a cyberpunky or internet era kind of angle to it. And there's some room to kind of dial that.
Well, now I'm 50-50 now that you said cyberpunk.
I know the word that will get Kira's ear, yes.
Also, like part of the reason that I'm excited about it is that for me, I feel like in a Maze of Dreams, more explicitly discusses like trans identity from my perspective. That's what I see in it as a playbook, which I'm really interested to see how that's handled, like how that plays out. That's why I have an investment in that specific one.
Cool.
Also, now more sold on Maze of Dreams. So,
Daniel, do you have any thoughts and feelings?
Well, maybe auspiciously, I also was leaning towards the Maze of Dreams. More based on your initial description, I'm actually less interested in a mystery, but I'm definitely very interested in how mass culture shapes our perception of ourselves and how we work within that to do a cool thing.
So it's less police procedural where we're trying to like solve a thing, and more about like the kind of loop of play for this one is that we go into people's dreams and kind of like deal with their own kind of like poisoned self-image or projections out onto the world. The kind of dream as a... Sorry, someone almost started a fire in my house, but we're good. Yeah, so it's not so much like we're trying to get to the bottom of it as much as we are trying to like engage with people's emotions and like help them heal or move past these things.
Yeah, have you seen the movie Paprika?
Yes, I was gonna say Paprika is like the flagship for this. Yeah, it's
okay. Well, then I'm down. That would be my vote.
Okay, so I'm hearing mostly we're leaning in the direction of In a Maze of Dreams, which is great.
I'm like it. You know, there is slightly more of an emphasis on like sexuality and sexual content in it, but like the way that you have handled it is a way that I am comfortable with, so I am on board with that.
So yeah, there are some changes in the playbook for rather than the characters like hanging out, they share intimate moments, and which could be like them having sex, or it could just be them like sharing their feelings or whatever else. And so there's a slightly different mechanic for that, which we can talk about down the line.
I like intimate moments that aren't sex, so.
Well, yeah, and there's room for that. It's very open, but it could
Which is not a vote against. Sorry, that way goes to class. I like exploring that other ground.
Yeah, there's definitely room for that.
I only bring it up because like I like as an asexual person, like in games that can be a thing that is an issue for me, but like it has been handled well here. So I wanted to like put it out there that I am positively on board with it because it is well handled.
Cool.
I like sex.
Thank you for sharing, Ash.
Me too. Our characters can just do it all the time.
Great. All right.
Oh dear.
In great detail.
That's like the O card. That's the opposite of the X card. The O card. Yes, more please. Okay.
Is it like the fucking like original viral article that made the X card popular called "Finding My O card with the X card" or something?
Yeah. My friend Brie wrote that, and I invented the O card.
Oh wow!
I'm proud of you, Kira. I'm proud of you.
We are in the presence of greatness here.
I mean, just to lay a claim on that, it's totally fine. I don't care.
No, we're staking out territory here. Okay, so we're gonna play In a Maze of Dreams. That's great. So if everyone wants to look in Roll20, I'm just going to drag us over to the sheet for that, which I have as a little map.
Whoa.
And so there's like a draw tool, a freehand tool, as well as a text tool, so we can fill in the fields on this as we go. I've got the list of prompts on my end, which I'll be kind of reading out the lists.
I am happy to play scribe if people would like.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So Luke, you can be doing note taking.
Andrew, did I send you the latest version of the character sheet? Because that has a series playbook tab.
Okay, cool. So when we are done kind of mucking about in this window, we can transcribe. Yeah, that'll be good because it does have the latest version in there, but I haven't assigned y'all sheets and stuff yet. So
that's fine.
In this game, there's like a structured procedure. Midway through is when we pick character playbooks, so we'll get to that. But first, we're going to establish kind of some ideas about what the antagonism is going to be and what kind of themes we want to touch on. We're going to talk about the mundane world, and which is kind of the non-magical antagonism because everything is horrible. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the roles that each of y'all will play within the kind of crew, and then we'll pick character playbooks, and then we'll circle back and do some other discussion about, like, in this game, everyone has like an avatar, which is like a expression of their identity and will that is alien to them. So we're going to talk about those and how the characters transgress against the social order of the mundane world. So, first up, we're going to ask about the nature of the conspiracy. So, is it A, an ideology turned virus, a single dream that plagues the world, a toxic cultural movement, history haunting the present, or the pull of some alien mind? And we can take these prompts and twist them and bend them and adjust them, and we can do a little bit of like chatting about what we want them to be or what they mean to us. Or there is the other approach of just being like, it's this one, and then we move on and we don't talk about it, which either one is fine, whatever y'all feel comfortable with. But I will read the list again. So, the nature of the conspiracy: an ideology turned virus, a single dream that plagues the world, a toxic cultural movement, history haunting the present, or the pull of some alien mind.
I feel like a toxic cultural movement may be slightly too real in present circumstances.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed.
I'll also say it's really interesting. As I'm reading this, I'm realizing the most like unlikely source material for this game, which is that like the third fucking Earthsea book, The Farthest Shore. There's some like super Farthest Shore vibes in this with the whole like the world is broken and everyone is going mad stuff. Anyway, I like an ideology turned virus.
Me too.
Or the pull of some alien mind. I think
me too. Those were my two choices.
And actually, and I also like the idea of history haunting the present.
So yeah, my two
were... It used the word haunting.
Yeah, my two were a single dream that plagues the world and history haunting the present. Those were the ones that I was like, ooh, like that like, but like what an alien mind might be is also a really interesting question to me. So that's also...
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's interesting that everyone has mentioned two, because my immediate impulse was to pair two of them together to make the thing. But as for the ones I'm most interested in, history haunting the present was the one that stood out for me. I was all on board the topicality of toxic cultural movement, but I understand the people not wanting to necessarily focus on that. And ideology turned virus was the other one that I liked.
So then it sounds to me like I'm interested then, if we're looking at the ones that seem to be popular amongst all of us, like an ideology turned virus and history haunting the present, like
seem complementary.
Like coming together is a really interesting idea.
Like an ideology from the past.
This is I'm gonna make it relevant and sad again. This is the like super nationalistic revisionist history narratives that are coming back into vogue.
Yeah, right.
Where they're like, yes, the imagined past when everyone was white and America was great.
That's also too real for me.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
to
Kira.
not be
I'm sorry.
exactly that, but
I'm sorry. I mean,
But
I was
no.
thinking more specifically of
You're fine.
Serbia in the context of that
Yeah.
bad
No,
history
that's actually,
game. But
that's
like,
actually why I was avoiding the history one, because I
Yeah.
felt like something about the past would be too sad or too anachronistic, like too old technology versus new technology, which I
Yeah.
thought new technology sounded more interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess old technology, you could have a ghost in the machine if you used old
Yeah,
technology.
exactly, that sort of thing. I was wondering if the combination of ideology turned virus maybe connects to like also has some overlap with the alien mind. In like my brain's going to like places of like Merlin and Arthurian cults, and like and the idea of like secret people having like brought these ideas through, like, and they've kept it sheltered, and now they're disseminating it. That's a that's where my
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I feel like the interesting thing about the pull of some alien mind is that depending on how generously we interpret some alien mind, which like I am inclined to interpret fairly generally, it actually describes all of, like, it's the super category. All of these are kind of just variations on the pull of some alien mind. The mind is just weird and abstract. And so I think the question is, do we want to emphasize the idea of like the gravity of whatever this idea is, or like the infectious like virus metaphor stuff? And I think both of those are interesting to me, but
and just
there's that thing of something that has so much pull that it is infectious. Like if something is so appealing to a human mind, then it's like, well, I can't not, something like heroin addiction is like, oh, I've got this thing in my head now. Actually, no, this is fucking atom spreading relationship anarchy. Well, the questions have been asked now. I can't unthink them.
Okay, so just so everyone has something to refer to, I have copied the question list into Roll20 as well, so it's just over on the right-hand side of the character sheet.
That sounds
just
good.
Past it, so y'all can actually see them written out. And so I was slightly distracted doing production stuff. Can we just loop back to what are the front runners for y'all? What are the like one or two that sound like they are most catching, and then we can talk about what it means.
Can I just I want to clarify that my interest in history haunting is not in a grand historical movement haunting, but in personal history haunting, which maybe is harder to be, for that to be a conspiracy. It would have to be combined in a way with these other things, and maybe that just naturally, maybe personal history haunting the present is just going to happen with dreams anyway. So it's possible that
that makes sense.
So, but I think the leaders were ideology turned virus and maybe alien mind.
Yeah, that was my feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, with like some of.
And there seems to be some back and forth on the history haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Daniel, if you're thinking about like personal histories, I think that's going to come up when we talk about the dream, which is it is canonically a personal reflection of the waking world. And so there's going to be room for how people kind of engage with the oppressive society, as well as this, like, whatever, this ideology turned virus or the pull of this alien mind. Those are going to be seen personally reflected in that space. So we will get to explore that stuff.
Yeah. If I can say about the alien mind, I think part of why I was moving away from that is I would like a multifarious or multivariant conspiracy, a single alien mind or a single ideology that is expressed through uniformity, like nationalism in a lot of ways, right? Like a fascist kind of ideology, to me is a lot less interesting than an ideology, for example, of liberal democracy or individualism or consumerism, or ideologies that have a multivarious expression. And so that's
right, that are like decentralized.
That's going to be more interesting than everyone dreams of being a Nazi or whatever. That's.
I feel like ideology turned virus has some space for that, because the idea of like mutating generations is like very much a core part of the virus metaphor, and so like right, like they would adapt to different hosts. How has the ideology mutated like as it has spread? I think could be a really productive way to look at like polyvalent, multivarious kind of like variations.
The thing that I'm that like about the history haunting the present that I'm like interested in is the idea of this thing that is old but only has recently become an issue. that is which totally would play into that viral thing, in that it's like, oh, whoops, someone opened the freaking the chest that had been storing the
like
bad thing.
the melting permafrost releasing bacteria thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what I am hearing in all of this is people are liking some mix of ideology turned virus plus some other stuff, but that this idea has been kind of most central to a lot of what people are describing. In terms of it being like distributed, non-centralized, changeable. To my mind, this fits the metaphor of like a virus.
Infectious, yeah.
Does that jive with people? Does that map to?
Yeah, that works for me.
Does it feel okay? We're getting nods. No one's saying no. I'm just going to underline this, and we'll keep trying.
I'll lock it in.
Yeah, my impulse, as you know, Andrew, is to over discuss everything in this thing. I'm all on board with just like, let's pick something, underline it, and then
Daniel, we're gonna get along, you and I.
Yeah. So
when we did the playtest of Interstellar Kingdom on my channel, we like Andrew gave us shit for like taking so long to do all this stuff, and
the Adelaide Canberra style.
Oh, anyways. I think it's totally fine to, we're gonna play to find out with all this stuff, so we're gonna make some statements, and then also even by the time we get to the end of this list choosing portion, we're gonna recontextualize everything anyway. So if this appeals on like a very baseline level, let's just underline it and move to the next.
Let's line it and move on.
Because it's gonna get characterized by everything that follows. So we have the nature of the conspiracy, that it is an ideology turned virus, and so now we ask, what is its impulse? To reshape people's dreams, to drive people to self-destruction, to make us shed our bodies, to shatter the barrier between waking and dreaming, to instill an alien morality in us, or to turn reality to farce.
Gosh, turn reality to farce is like, wow. But at the same time, like, why people to self-destruction is really appealing to me at the moment, because it's a thing that I have that like I would like to explore. Because it's the thing I have to deal with.
Can I say, first of all, that's a great list. I'm really into that list.
It's just every bad behavior that I have.
The only one on it that I wasn't immediately like, that's great, was the last one. But all the other ones seem great to me.
I feel like the turn reality to farce one is for like a very particular kind of group.
Like, I mean, I can see ways that would be interesting. I just don't trust any group to necessarily pull it off.
No. I really like to shatter the barriers between waking and dreaming, but that's because I'm due my like once every several years Sandman reread. So like,
I mean,
take that with a grain of salt, right?
It's that, and like Paprika is definitely shatter the barrier between waking and dreaming with a dash of turning reality to farce, in terms of like how that the breaking of that barrier is like these are all inspired by the kinds of the fiction that inspired the playbook initially. So
I feel like in a lot of ways to drive people to self-destruction is the darkest of these, like in terms of the territory it's going to push us into. It is very definitely gonna like darken the tone overall, and like I am on board with that, but I think we should like consider that before we commit to it, and like see what else we feel like.
I'm agree with that.
Yeah, the other one that's simple, like to make us shed our bodies, is sort of slightly like the step back from that. It feels like
the transhumanist version of that.
Yeah, and like the reason, like either of those I'd be really interested in. Obviously, like more self-destruction, because I feel like I trust this group, and so it's a space in which I as a player would be able to like play some of that stuff, and play with some of those concepts in a group that I feel safe with. So that's there, but yeah, like either of those would do that, I think.
For some reason, for this scenario, I'm picturing Mads Mikkelsen in Doctor Strange, like the villain that he plays. And like how his goal is to like, I want to save everybody on Earth by bringing this other reality into our world, and that's fine. Everyone's cool with that, right? It's good. It's a good solution.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
want
don't
to
know.
liberate us all from the
Yeah.
mortal nature of bodies. Like, can't you see
Yeah,
I'm doing the
yeah.
right thing? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think I'm fine with any of these. I'm pretty laid back. So if someone feels very strongly about one of these, I'm on board. Like, self-destruction is fine. I think that's really cool if we're talking about technology. You can get into cyborg stuff.
Yeah, I have a question that maybe will clarify. I don't know, maybe not. When you say the impulse of the conspiracy, I am imagining its impulse, like what it will do viscerally in the moment when in doubt, versus like its goal, right? Is that like what is meant by impulse? Maybe.
Yeah. So this is.
I know the word from Apocalypse World, of course.
Yeah, so
but
it has some of that context of like this is going to be its go-to behavior, and this is like how it. This is what it's going to push people to do when they are like in its thrall. In terms of like a grand agenda, I especially feel like if we have this idea of an ideology turned virus, there's going to be a disconnect between the way that it actually affects people's lives and the rhetoric that it espouses about what its objectives are.
The lofty goals of like...
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that's something
whatever.
that resonates, at least for me. That's something that feels very true about how that kind of stuff carries out. So, when things go badly, there is... let me just... Sorry. Refer to my documentation here. So, occasionally the conspiracy will enact its agenda, which is a separate thing. Or it can like it'll do stuff based on its impulse. Yeah, I think Daniel, your assessment is pretty good. Of like the impulse is kind of a more ground level thing, and that it might have some broader, more nebulous set of goals that it's trying to enact.
What damage does this ideology do to people's lives?
Yeah. I think in that context, I'm most interested in the shattering the barrier. I'm also totally on board with drive to self-destruction. In a way, drive to self-destruction to me feels more like a thing that requires intentionality, but I can see how that could not be true. So anyway, those are just mine. I'd go for either of those.
Cool.
Okay, so
everyone's on board with something else.
Andrew, as GM, how do you feel about like the drive to self-destruction as like the kind of darkest option, or would it be, because if we go with to shed our bodies, that gives us a step back. It can actually play into some of that like dividing between reality and like play with the divide between reality and the dream as well.
So I mean, what I've been hearing most is everyone has mentioned self-destruction as being like dramatic or like dark or compelling in some way, and so I feel like this is the one we should explore, just because it's been bubbling up. I, as the GM, needing to like inflict that on various NPCs, I will do it. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I'll embark on that territory.
We're here to support you as well, though.
Yeah, so I'm going to trust y'all to like push back when appropriate, because I might get super dark on accident and just go a little too far. So
that super dark on accident is the name of your autobiography.
Yeah.
That's okay. Do you feel okay doing it though? Because if you don't, we can do something else.
Would you feel better if we used like the shed our bodies one as a step back?
I'm interested in this as like a challenge as well, to like figure out compelling ways to make this come out that aren't just like everyone's always trying to kill themselves or some stupid perfunctory shit. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to come up with something really messed up, and that's fine. So let's move on to the next one.
And you're okay. You're okay with that too, Ash? You didn't want to go back to the other one?
No, that's fine.
Okay. It sounds like we're solid here. Okay, cool. So now we're going to talk about the host for this ideological virus.
Yes.
And so this is like kind of the like perpetrators of this thing, although they might in this case also be kind of unwitting in terms of what they're generating or whatever, but the options are a secret society, artists and luminaries, a cabal of sorcerers, an online gestalt, a sentient dream, ghosts and echoes. And so there's some dialing here in terms of like, you know, like supernatural magical stuff, or more kind of grounded, more mundane stuff, more kind of techie
Secret societies,
stuff.
cabals.
Good
online
list.
weird things.
I'm like the only one I'm not super interested in is Ghosts and Echoes.
Oh,
Okay.
that's okay. It goes in the machine, Luke. No, that's totally fine.
That's an online gestalt, Kira.
No, it's not. It's a ghost.
Well, no, ghost.
Ghost.
Like,
Yeah.
to my mind, when we talk about Ghosts and Echoes, like, I immediately go to Serial Experiments Lane, if any of y'all have seen that,
Yeah, me
where
too.
there's, like, people get emails
same.
from their,
Yeah.
like, dead classmate, stuff like
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, that
it's,
sounds-
Yeah,
it's,
it's like really
it's,
creepy.
it's your Monster Hearts 2-shot. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because that was
Yes.
the inspiration for that, Luke. Yeah. So,
So
I
that's
see.
fine. So you said cults, Ash?
Well, so yeah, I like talking about that, the ideas that like I was interested in earlier. I like the idea of something that is kind of like Ghosts and Echoesy, but like the
Cool.
host of it is a cabal or a secret society or a
Yeah.
something that has been like the guardian of this thing until like
Yeah.
it started acting. That's the thing that I'm really interested in, that because
That's
like
a cool idea.
yeah, for me, what the reason that I'm interested in that, like that, putting that history behind it is that it's kind of one of the ways where you can add like grandeur to the thing, right? Like you can be like, it's from space, it's the size of a sun, or you can be like, it's as old as time, or like all those sorts of things.
Yeah. It's also goes back. I also can't stop picturing Mads Mikkelsen as the villain. I'm sorry, because it's like he
No,
has
I-
a cult, a magic cult, and okay, this is my fan fiction I'm writing already.
No, I like
No.
Kira. Hit me up after the game. I'm totally.
Well,
on
and-
I
board.
mean, that's what role-playing games are to me. Like it's just,
They're just fan
like, oh yeah, my
fiction.
character's definitely not such and such.
so
Yeah, a cult's a good idea. Also, the sentient, whatever that one. I
a
thought was-
sentient dream.
Yeah, sentient dream, because that sounds awesome.
So
It's like an AI, but a dream.
for my part, I do not have any context for the Mads Mikkelsen cult thing. I haven't seen
Yeah, me neither.
the media for it. It
That's
sounds amazing. I'm like, I need to go watch something after this, clearly.
It was my favorite part of the movie.
I was
but I would need
really
someone else to carry
angry
that or onboard me.
about how good Doctor Strange was. Like it had a bunch of
It was really good.
conceptual, like they like whitewashed, and I was really annoyed about that, and I don't
Yeah.
super like Benedict
Yeah, I mean,
Cumberbatch as an
fuck
actor,
that.
but like everything else about it really worked. And I was like, God damn it, Marvel. Anyway,
I agree. It was really.
That
I
was-
mean, it had Chiwetel. What's his face? Was the other
Ejiofor,
character?
yeah, was also
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I the reason I don't like Ghosts and Echoes in this specific context, like normally I'm super on board for it, but I am interested in there being I'm interested in someone's being culpable. Like I think
that's why I'm interested in like the culty sort of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I'm not interested in the idea that it's just like, oh, yeah, there's, like, this destructive ideology, it's turned virus, it's driving people to self-destruction, and, like, just absolutely no one is to blame. It just, like,
I mean,
happened
those ghosts
totally.
those ghosts will be characters that will be embodied somewhere. Like, they'll probably exist within the dream. And
That's,
be-
yeah, okay, so, like...
So, like, it's never going to be completely
the echoes part of that implies, and this may just be, like, my personal, like, lens, but, like, implies a more fragmentary consciousness and less agency and less, like, self...
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong in saying that this does have, like, a less grounded...
Yeah, and so, like, I feel like because we've chosen to go really dark with, to drive people to self-destruction, I would like to, like...
You want to have someone to go after?
I'd like to balance out the nihilism of that by, like, being, like, there is some culpability, like, there is some sense of, like, justice maybe being possible.
Okay.
Rather than just a setup where, like, justice is just completely, like, there is no justice to be done because no one is actually responsible.
That's a fair point. So I've been hearing a lot
I'm
of,
with
like... been hearing a lot from other folks. Daniel, where do you weigh in on this particular topic?
I was planning this big, strong counter pitch for an online gestalt, but everyone has, I think it's clear enough that that's not really what people are.
Well, yeah, but the cult can be an online gestalt in its own way, right?
Yeah, but to me, those are very different. A cult kind of takes deliberate action. They might be ignorant of what they're actually doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But an online gestalt,
They have agency.
Online gestalt is like 4chan run amok.
They're not aware of what they're doing.
They have agency and they take decisions, and even those individual decisions could be bad, but they don't understand the true. It's kind of it's the convergence of different actors. I like the online gestalt. I guess I'm making a little bit of a pitch for the idea of a long dormant virus that has only now become relevant or awakened. To me, a virus that before could only transmit itself through a book, for example, or through other forms of information transfer, that suddenly gains access to online and suddenly can promulgate and mutate at this accelerated rate. To me, that was an interesting thought. But that said, cults are cool. I'm into cults.
I'm wondering if an online gestalt is like a natural progression of the thing we're talking about.
Yeah, do we need these two ideas to be mutually exclusive would be the question I would put forward.
Yeah, there could always be an ancient cult that used to, and that would be interesting to me if there is a cult or a society that thinks they're the origin, and maybe they are the origin, and they think they're still in control of it, but now that it's online, it's totally they're not actually running the show anymore, but they think they are. They're like the Republicans or something, It's like, sorry.
but yeah, that's the kind of stuff that this series is like. I wrote this last year amidst all that shit happening, and there are obviously notes of that in here, and it's my way. This was
maybe
we
want cult plus online gestalt or something. I don't know. That's
Andrew, can I ask you a question real quick?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is your intention to include these real life issues into this scenario, or does it not matter?
I don't think we need to literally put them in there, because I think this broader set of metaphors is going to
cool.
It's a way of chewing on those issues without directly being playing them out.
I mean, I made the Republican joke. It was.
Oh yeah.
I'm not interested in going straight to actual real life.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that.
But it's a clarifying.
I was just. We keep kind of bouncing back and forth between fantastical and real life, and so I was just curious,
how
part of your design
grounded
that you need to explore in this playtest, type of thing. But if not, then
okay. Well, then I'm gonna level my vote and say online gestalt to me sounds cool as this weird. I like Daniel's pitch of the idea of there being some established cult with maybe a document which someone it's like an obscure text that someone then found and published online, and then it exploded, and there is still
I'm down
an extent cult and organization, and then also this kind of runaway train version of it that has bubbled up online.
And that plays into the mutation thing as well.
Right, yeah, that's right, because I think that links back to the other things that we put forward.
I just love the idea of some cult full of occult bros who are they're doing it wrong, watching the online forums, and it's they're not even real wizards. Have you even read the so and so?
Well, and it's useful to me as a device.
That's so real.
To be able to keep those distinctions muddy as well, because that's going to help kind of obfuscate and mystify this conspiracy that is hard to pin down where it started. It's very to my mind, this goes back to Ghost in the Shell, the standalone complex second season, is where my mind is going of there's a document that is totally incendiary and in the right place and time gets its moment and kind of blows up. And
yeah, I'm glad you thought that too.
Great. Cool. So we'll go with online gestalt with the nod to the cult elements, which I think are great and I want to explore. So now we come to the vector of infection. So how is this thing spreading, and in what ways does it communicate itself? So the vector of infection can be insular communities and coded language, hopes and desires, passions and conflict, fashion and ritual, consumption and excess, or a half-forgotten song, which is a little bit of a weird one. Anyways, the idea here is So if I am a host of it, how do I transmit this ideology to someone else? Is it like, to me, insular communities and coded language is like 4chan. Hopes and desires would be that like it preys upon, or like if we continue with the virus metaphor, how do you get sick with this thing?
Hopes and desires is the "Make America Great Again" meme, right? Like, it's straight up is that. It's like, here is a promise that everything can be better. You buy into the promise, cool, you got the infection now.
But it's also, to be the most real of them all. To me, that's would be my pick, or that's my initial thought.
I mean, that's how like actual cults.
To me, that seems the most easy for me to figure out what that looks like. Maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like fashion and ritual because it's the most.
I really like fashion and ritual. I also really like a half-remembered song. Those are my favorites.
So my least favorites, the ones that, so I'm kind of interested in all of them. I just insular communities and coded language and a half-forgotten song are probably my least. I'm like,
Yep.
I
think they're a lot like what we were already talking about. I like the idea of something that's a bit at odds, maybe, with what we've.
Yep, like a counterpoint rather than something that follows directly. Cool.
Which fashion and ritual fit with that for me as well.
I really like the idea of fashions and ritual because it lets us dig into this kind of like cargo cult type thing of like, all right, cool. So like this magic book, and they put it online, and they lost control of like who has access to the information and how people have interpreted it. And so this whole like set of like this whole culture has like sprung up around the reading of the book of like, you know, like we dress a certain way, we talk a certain way, we've got all these rituals that we share, and like none of those things are in the book, but because of their like proximity to it, because they're informed by it, they've become vectors for the infection. And like I think that's
the culture that has sprung up around. I mean, I've just gone ahead and underlined fashions and ritual because everyone was like, yeah, that seems cool. So the idea of like a culture that springs up around the thing being a way to bring people in, like, oh yeah, they all like dress in a cool way, or that it is fashionable to be part of it even, or
and that's also like to be a giant nerd just for a moment, and like put on because like this is the point where like I remember, and like sometimes I do forget this, that like this literally was my degree. Because like the anthropology of religion specifically was my thesis, and so like that's 100% real. Like that's very much one of the ways that like religion is transmitted, and so I think that's really interesting.
I also like that rituals to be implies people doing something, to kind of tie back a little bit to what Luke was saying earlier about someone being culpable or there being an action like a physical. Yeah, so rituals and fashion are like the ritual could be obviously problematic or troublesome in a way that forces people to acknowledge that I think I like that element.
And it also like rituals gives us a natural way into self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, and I think almost most importantly, it feels like this is a playbook that can very easily get lost in become like really airy-fairy and nebulous and lose its like grounding. And I feel like ritual, because it is a thing that you do and it like probably involves your body, like it grounds us back in the waking world.
Mm-hmm.
And ensures that we don't like shift too far onto the like this game is just about the dream, and then we have like perfunctory real body stuff. And like it is important to me that both of those things be represented, and I like ritual as a way to like
to ground things in the real world.
Exactly.
Well, cool.
I was just gonna say that like I'm interested in the idea of something of like a thing that I would be interested in seeing here is the idea of something being, you know, kind of addictive or having like a weird draw in there. It's like, you know, once you have tasted it, it kind of draws you back in, like ecstasy or nirvana sort of, or like even just like a fugue and being like free of some kind of suffering or something, like where it's like, yeah, that thing of like, well, I'll try this, and then like it has that
there's like a downward spiral of behavior.
The rituals actually work.
I mean,
and that's part of what's so seductive about the whole thing, right?
Of course the rituals work.
Part of how they work is probably by making you feel like you belong to something important.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like to connect you back to this larger group. Okay. So let's talk about the waking world. So the waking world belongs to everyone and no one. And so from these lists, we will choose one or two of the options. And some of them are kind of like flatly descriptive of the setting, like in terms of its physical details, and others are more contextual. So, and we can mix the two together. So we have looming spires, the press of bodies, crisscrossed by wires, media saturation, protests and riots, smog and haze. So all of these definitely push things in like a urban, modern setting, unless we really want to stretch to not be. But it sounds like we have the internet and all these other things. We're talking about like fashion, which to me indicates a certain level of like consumerist, capitalist kind of stuff. But we can characterize.
I like media saturation.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I really like. I really like the press of bodies.
I like that one too.
And like I'm just like flashbacks to Shibuya Crossing when I was in Japan, and just like that enormous like faceless anonymous crowd. Like that's a really powerful
and
the image for me, because like I've been in that. I like crisscrossed by wires. The like spider web of like internet cable aesthetic is also very appealing to me.
Yeah,
and I also like smog and haze. I think smog and haze is really cool.
Crisscrossed by wires gives me the image of the hutong in Beijing, because it is that weird thing of like really old, like kind of rundown buildings, but all of these wires running across, because the old buildings are the ones that are expensive. So everyone's got their high-speed internet and like big screen TVs in these old falling down ruins.
And there's this idea of like the multiple waves of development where they built the thing and it's not set up for all the new shit, and the new shit gets kind of tacked on to the old stuff. And so from the outside, it's just all like wires and stuff piled on.
I like the wires. To me, the wires specifically implies that we're not in some slightly future place where everything's like Wi-Fi and everything is polished. And surfaces are all clean and so I like that one as well.
I like that quite with the media saturation, in that like there's wires everywhere, partially because
we have to bring you all everywhere. This stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're everywhere. But like they're this, like the scaffolding is showing, like the wires are showing. We can see this. There's a physical manifestation of whatever it is that's fucking with us.
And
I like the press of bodies and media saturation, but together I'm like, it's like double press, like there's bodies everywhere and there's media everywhere. To me, that I don't know.
One of those two would be good, but not both at the same time. I feel that.
So the one thing I will say is I'm less interested in media saturation, only because one of the long-running campaigns at work that we only just recently wrapped up is like a slightly cyberpunk superhero setting where media saturation is like a really big touchstone, and so I'm kind of like I'm a little bit burned out on that particular trope. Like I can stretch to do it, but like my preference would be not that thing.
Kira, thoughts?
Yeah, Kira, you were the first to voice a pro media saturation. Curious here.
Oh yeah, I mean all these sound great, to be honest. So I thought media saturation might be cool because we were talking about the persistence of an idea, and so the combination of those two things with the cult sounded pretty neat. But if you're tired of that also makes sense. The wires thing is really cool for the lane imagery, because I just imagine like, the drone shot of like a person walking down a street and like too many wires.
Spider web overhead.
And like too many wires in their room, like wires everywhere. Nothing is wireless yet forever.
And
I don't know.
There's a certain like clunkiness. And the need for hardware and
To me, that also makes more.
You have to physically plug in instead of wires.
Yeah, and also to me, mass culture. What the virus and the ritual and the fashion look like are very different, whether there is media saturation or not. Is it like a resistance against the monoculture, or is it a thing spreading up in the cracks, and the cracks are large, so the cracks are very small?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in the potential intersection of the press of bodies and fashion and ritual, Because to me, depressive bodies necessarily implies that like salaryman type, like that like faceless anonymous like mass culture, and the idea of like fashion and ritual as ways to restate claim on identity.
Yeah, I imagine.
And like,
yeah, Luke, when you brought up. Oh, Kara, you go.
No, that's okay. I was picturing the opposite, like Tumblr fashion, you know? Like, imagine everyone with like health goth and solar punk and and it was like too many people. Oh,
yeah, because I think what Luke's suggesting is that like the Tumblr fashion as part of the as part of the thing is a reaction partially to the large like the salaryman.
And
the anonymizing factor.
Yeah.
And the sheer like population that this prompt suggests in terms of oppressive bodies, right? That like there are lots and lots and lots of people, and that we are all packed into a small space together.
I mean,
and we're all interchangeable. But like and like the reason that the cult is appealing and that fashion and ritual has power is because it lets us push back against that.
I like it as a way to like stake individuality, and that the people's need to self-determine and have an independent identity is part of what makes the cult so appealing to them as a way of being special, even though it's that classic thing of like, oh, you're being special by being part of a different homogenous group of
and like to a self-destructive extent.
So I think I'm hearing enough chatter in favor of these two that we'll go with oppressive bodies and crisscrossed by wires. They both sound great to me, so
to me, I'll add one thing. To me, the oppressive bodies also tells me about the power of being alone in places and of open space. I'm just throwing that out as like an image or a desire that people could have.
Totally, and maybe that
it puts some real weight behind the share an intimate moment mechanic. Like it really makes that like
to find an intimate moment. How to find an intimate moment in a crowd is a fascinating idea.
And then also this idea of the dream as a personal reflection of the waking world, and so what that's going to look like in this context, I think is all very interesting. It's like I built these to do stuff. Okay, so so what shapes the dream? And we're gonna again choose one or two from this list. Oh no, Andrew, we're due for a break. Yeah, we're due for a break. So we're gonna go on break for a bit, and we'll come back in like 5 or 10 minutes. So hang tight, those of you in the audience. We'll be back in a little bit.